Good day. I am George Washington, though you may know me as the father of my country. Today, I shall tell you a tale not just of battlefields and presidencies, but of challenges, triumphs, and yes, even whiskey making. Let me set the stage. It was late 1776, and things weren't exactly looking promising for the Continental Army. The British had taken control of New York City, and my troops were demoralized, tired, and dwindling in numbers. We had suffered defeat after defeat. Our backs were against the wall. But I knew we couldn't give up. The British were enjoying the comforts of winter quarters, believing the fight was over until spring. However, I knew we needed a victory to boost morale and keep the revolutionary cause alive. That's when I decided to strike. A daring nighttime raid across the Delaware River on Christmas night. Now, why cross the Delaware? My target was Trenton, New Jersey, where a garrison of Hessian soldiers, hired by the British, were stationed. These Hessians were known for their discipline and brutality on the battlefield. But I had intelligence that suggested they were overconfident and celebrating the holidays. The plan was to take them by surprise and give the Continental Army something we hadn't had in a while: hope. The decision wasn't made lightly. The river was dangerous, full of ice, and the weather was brutal. But I knew the element of surprise was crucial. Timing was everything. The night of December 25th, we began our journey across the Delaware. It wasn't just the freezing temperatures or the ice flows that posed a threat. It was the fact that any misstep could cost us everything. We had 2,400 men to move, and the crossing took longer than expected. But there was no turning back. By the time we crossed, it was already morning. The element of surprise was still on our side, though we were behind schedule. With the men cold and tired, we marched toward Trenton, and what awaited us was a chance to turn the tide of war. The Battle of Trenton was swift. The Hessians, unprepared for our arrival, were caught off guard. In less than an hour, we had captured nearly 1,000 enemy soldiers with minimal casualties. This victory was more than just a tactical win. It revitalized the cause of independence and breathed new life into our army. Suddenly, the idea of defeating the British wasn't so far-fetched. Trenton was a morale booster that we desperately needed, but we didn't stop there. We had to keep the momentum going. Not long after our victory at Trenton, I devised another bold move: an attack on British forces at Princeton, New Jersey. On January 3rd, 1777, engaged British troops who were marching to retake Trenton. Again, we used surprise and speed to our advantage. While we lost a few men, including the brave General Hugh Mercer, we ultimately forced the British to retreat. These victories at Trenton and Princeton reinvigorated the revolutionary effort. We had proven that the British could be beaten, and it sent a message across the colonies that the fight for independence was far from over. But war is not all about victories. After Princeton, we faced one of the toughest challenges of the entire revolution: Valley Forge. It was the winter of 1777 to 78, and our army was in desperate need of rest and reorganization. Valley Forge was chosen as our winter encampment, but it quickly became a test of endurance and willpower. We had no proper shelters, supplies were scarce, and disease was rampant. It's said that nearly 2,000 men died from cold, starvation, and illness. However, even in the face of such hardship, we persevered. In the end, the true turning point of the war came in 1781 at Yorktown. After years of fighting, we had cornered British General Cornwallis at Yorktown, Virginia. With the help of French forces and their naval blockade, we laid siege to the British position. For weeks, we bombarded them until they could take no more. On October 19, 1781, Cornwallis surrendered his army of nearly 8,000 men. It was the final major battle of the war, and though skirmishes continued elsewhere, the British government had had enough. Peace negotiations soon followed, leading to the Treaty of Paris in 1783 and the formal recognition of American independence. What most people don't realize is that the Revolutionary War wasn't about winning every battle. It was about surviving long enough to outlast the British. We didn't need to crush them on the battlefield. We just needed to keep fighting until they grew tired of the war. And that's exactly what we did. The crossing of the Delaware, the victories at Trenton and Princeton, and the endurance at Valley Forge, all of these moments weren't just military actions. They were calculated moves to keep the spirit of independence alive. Through it all, there was one constant in my life: my wife, Martha. Not many know this, but she traveled with me during much of the war, lifting spirits at camp and keeping our affairs in order at Mount Vernon. She was my closest confidant. I may have won battles, but she was the glue that held our home and my heart together. Once the war was over, I returned home to Mount Vernon. My duties didn't end on the battlefield. I became quite the entrepreneur, experimenting with crop rotation and even establishing one of the largest whiskey distilleries in America. Yes, you heard me right. Who knew the father of his country could also be its whiskey king? One might say I was a pioneer in more ways than one. And then, I was called to serve as the first president of these United States. It was no easy task, building a government from scratch, but I knew we needed stability, unity, and a system that could last beyond my time. I established the cabinet, and I knew stepping down after 2 terms was important. No man should hold too much power for too long. After all, I had seen what power could do to kings and emperors, and I wasn't about to become one myself. In the end, I hope my life serves as a reminder of perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds, of the importance of unity, and of the deep roots we must cultivate for the future to flourish. So, while I'm often remembered for those iconic moments like crossing the Delaware, what truly matters is that we never gave up. We fought not just for victory, but for the future of a free nation. And that, my friends, is why we succeeded.